Is it? Yep. Well, that's you can do it off of that too. All right, we're live.
Yeah. Pow.
What's up, guys? What is up? I know it looks a little bit different. It might actually be a little bit better with we don't have an ugly mug in the picture right now. But we, I just want to say welcome to Deck Talk Podcast. And boy, if you don't know the guy that's on the right hand side, that is our good buddy Caleb Bell with Bass Quest. I called him up here not too long ago or earlier today and just said, "Hey, Norman's got the flu. I need somebody to come in and hop in." And he says, "Heck yeah, let's go. Let's hammer this down." So, Caleb, thank you so much, brother, for getting on here. And because we all know that you love to be able to talk some fishing.
That's
But,
right.
but guys, we have Jon Nelson from Torrent Outdoors. He lives up close to my old stomping grounds. We're from Middle Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
But he's originally, we like to call him a Yankee down here, but but he finally moved back down, or he moved down here, and we've been able to talk to him, and we've been able to meet and chit chat, and he's got some baits, guys, that is phenomenal. That I told him, I said, "Hey, we want to get you on and be able to talk about these baits." And I know one thing, man. This new swim bait that you have, Jon, it is phenomenal. But real quick, Jon and Caleb, let's go through. We have our sponsor for this episode is Firefly Marine, guys. If you are looking for the best navigational lights to be able to put on your boat, the nav lights is not going to have any kind of blindness or is going to attract any kind of bugs. Is this is the lights that you are wanting to have? It is hands down the best nav lights. The regular stern light will go up to 9 feet. The juniors will stay up around 5.5 feet. So when you're doing all that night fishing, what's going to happen is going to be fishing you're going to be like you're fishing underneath a full moon. You do not want to miss it. But also, if you want to go to fireflymarines.com, guys, and make sure you use that discount code DECKTALK10 and get you your discount on it, and it will be shipped right away, guys. So with that being said, let's hammer down on this. So Jon, let's talk about that swim bait, because I know Caleb, once he sees this swim bait, he's going to geek out, and it's going to be
That's
on.
exactly what I was just doing. You caught me searching. It's the Thresher, right? That's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Yes,
Looks
sir.
good.
Well, it's called the Thresher 4.2, and anytime you see a number next to my the name of the lure, it's basically the length in inches. So what we got here is it's called the Thresher 4.2, and I designed it so to give guys whoever's on here a little background to what I do is I am a fisherman, so that's where it all started. And I wanted, ever since I was a kid, I tinkered and I made up my own lures and, Frankenstein, different lures together. And I grew up in Wisconsin, so I was a multi-species fisherman. And so I did just different combinations for muskies, northerns, northern pike, smallmouth, largemouth, walleye. And when I got into coming down south, I got into the tournament scene and started bass fishing. And I grew up bass fishing too, but never tournaments. And so I started looking around and I found different lures I really liked, but then I always got to that point where I was like, man, I wish it was just had this little bit difference to it. And and I would look for those lures and I'd look at different places and find just smaller companies that might have something that isn't mainstream. And finally I got to the point where I was like, man, I'm gonna just start designing my own lures. And so I started drawing them up. So when you see a lure on my website or whatever people are using, it actually started on a notepad. So these are all custom designed lures. Now, I will do a disclaimer. There's so many lures out there that have similar characteristics. Like I get that. You know, you're going to have a creature bait and there's going to be 500 different types of creature baits. Like I know there's like a consistent style in it. Okay. So there is some reinvent the wheel stuff, but then I try to add some different things that I thought made it just a tad bit better or it brought me more confidence when I fish it. Cause like, I mean, I'm speaking to fishermen right now. That's the largest percentage of importance is your confidence in that bait.
Right.
Do you agree, Caleb,
Yeah.
as a guide?
Oh,
You
100%,
have
dude.
to have some confidence in that bait.
That's huge.
So I have two sizes, and here's my 6.5. So this is a 6.5 inch, and I thought I'd use it so you can see it better. So what you notice is it's a smooth front section. It's got a little fin
Sorry.
on top. Huh?
Sorry, that was me. I don't know if y'all could hear that echo.
Oh no.
No, you're
And then
good.
what I have is a hybrid. So it's got a paddle tail, but also has like a stick to it. So this has been crammed in my box, so it's got a little curve to it. But it's got this like knife point off the back, and if you look closely, there's little slits in it for the kick, and you can customize it by knocking it down. You can rip
Right.
it at those little spots. I always add a little flair to it. If you look closely here, you can see my logo on it. See Torrent.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious how that affects the swim of that. Does it like change
It's
from a
going to give.
normal paddle tail because you've got like a keel on there? I'm
Yep.
curious about that.
Yeah, it's gonna give it a little more flair. So visually, it's gonna give it a little bigger profile, depending on the color. And I can get into that because I have a color called Royalty, where it moves the water good, but it doesn't have the color, so it doesn't give it that larger profile like visually.
Right.
It's gonna move more water. I'm just a big fan of it. A big part of it too, to answer your question, Caleb, is I design it where you can actually, with your finger, peel off the paddle tail and use it as a straight tail.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yep.
You could use it as a, like a chatterbait trailer.
Chatterbait. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Now, another
actually,
thing that you could do is kind of give it an accent color. Like
mhm,
just that little fin. Just put that chartreuse on there, and you've got just a little kick of chartreuse.
you got it. You got it.
Yeah.
Because I take like this olive shad right here, and I
Mm,
dip. This is my olive
yeah,
shad color.
just that.
I dip
Yeah.
this in chartreuse, and it
Yeah.
it it looks like a blade. The
Yeah.
flash.
Well, and
Right.
that's
Cool.
with doing that, and so is that. Have you noticed when you dip it, just that little tip in? Have you noticed the where like it's more? Are you getting more of like a short strike to it, or is that really enhancing? Or
I feel like like with the swim baits, if it's not on the A rig, you can tell now with live scope the attitude of fish with A rigs. I mean,
right,
Yeah.
there's some days it doesn't matter what A rig you're throwing, you're gonna watch 20-25 pounds of fish follow it to the boat, and that's just gonna break your heart. But that's just part of it. But I find
yeah,
that if they're ready to eat, there's no
yeah,
problem. I mean, they
no,
choke it. It's
No,
fine.
I haven't really had, especially with chartreuse. We have a lot of shad lakes, and we have threadfin shad, and on the coast they call them yellowtails.
Mhm.
Same kind of fish, and they have a chartreuse tail to them, and so those fish are kind of used to doing that. Feeding on though, but if you have a short strike issue on smaller paddle tail swim baits like that, all you got to do is take that head, like your lead head itself, and paint it red.
Mm. Bring
That's
them
a
up.
big thing, and the colder
yeah,
the better. Like when it's really, really, really cold, you start going to those smoke transparent colors.
yeah,
And a swim bait like you've got right there, something that will kick in extremely cold water temperatures,
yeah.
and then you just run that red head on there. I don't know what it is about it. They like the red-headed stranger. I mean, that is what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I fished a tournament a few weeks ago on Percy Priest, and we weighed in 1922, and I actually had
Yeah,
3 red jigs with my white swim bait.
yeah,
exactly. Makes a
yeah,
huge. It looks goofy,
It is. Oh, and if you're
But
throwing for the first time, you're like, I am not.
Nah.
and it's like the cleaner the water, the better
Yeah,
too. Like if it's 30-foot visibility, it's like pearl white or like pearl chartreuse and redheads.
and then the smallmouth will eat. They'll hit it like it's the last thing they're ever eating, and they'll tear
Oh
up.
my gosh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
They'll
yeah,
knock 4
yeah.
foot of slack in it. Like you
Yeah.
won't even have a rig anymore, and you're trying to catch up to get to bed.
Yeah. So with that in mind, so there's so a lot of my team guys, they'll just throw it on the chatterbait with the paddle tail. It really
Right.
doesn't mess up the action. However, I was big on when it first came out on the scrounger head.
Yeah, I
And
was just about to say.
with the scrounger head, you can't have anything work against it, right?
No.
Right.
So you need a straight tail, and the big scrounger head, this bait right here, you pull the paddle tail off, and you got this perfect scrounger head bait.
Yeah.
And same with the smaller one. So what you'll notice when I make baits, I'm trying to make it multifaceted.
Right.
Not just it's something. So I have you guys heard of the donkey rig?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So I'll do that with these 4.2s, and I'll just pull the paddle tail off 2 of them, and
Right.
I might do an olive shad with a white, or I might do
Yeah.
2 olive shad with the tail with the chartreuse,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Because it looks like it's very easy to be able to turn it into like a fluke bait to
Mhm.
where,
Yeah.
I mean, so
and
that,
We've been doing that for years with back in the day we would have a pack of Kitex, and that's what we would do. We'd snip both sides of that tail,
Mhm.
and you just have that one little edge. And it created a really interesting action on the scrounger. And if you didn't
yeah.
want like a muted action on it, and you wanted it to really kick, you would cut the little V to make it like a pintail, like a hog farmer spunk shad is now.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of the birth of that bait, honestly, was
Yeah.
just the engineering of guys like us on the water, messing around with it.
Yeah.
And with the swim bait, you could throw it like a single swim bait with the paddle tail, or if you want to do the just pull off the paddle tail and just bring it
Yeah.
over the top of their head, depending if you're like a Demiki rig style or a
Yeah, hover rigging
Yeah.
or mid strolling,
Yep.
whatever you want to call it. It
And
would be
then
a great hover rig bait, the way that's designed.
Right.
Actually, when I'm talking about, actually putting the 90-degree tie and a
Yep.
Nico weight in the front of
Yep.
it
Yep.
to do a true hover rig, that would be a great bait for that also. Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I
100%.
think I forgot what company it is with. Is it Matt Steffen? I think they made that one with it's the lead head in the front with the point.
Yeah.
It's all in one. I forgot the name of
Right.
the company. I apologize, but it where the line ties at 90 degrees and it comes
Mhm.
out of the head
Right.
about a half inch.
Yeah,
But
Right.
here's just another way you can throw these.
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
a
they're
big
pretty.
key. And when it's cold like this, like those little fish head spins, if you take that and take that paddle tail off of there, like a straight tail bait, a lot of guys sleep on that. But when it's really cold, like we're just now getting cold temperatures. I know
Yeah.
water temperatures in Tennessee. Yesterday, I was finally seeing upper 30s and low 40s. And when you start seeing that, and these fish get out deep, they're on shell and springs, and on like do nothing flats and creeks and stuff. Dude, taking an underspin, whether it's one of those or I tell you the killer one that I've been messing around with is Matt Allen's, that guppy head underspin.
Yeah.
That one's
Cool.
fantastic also. But
Cool.
a pintail or straight tail
Yep.
on an underspin.
Yeah,
Deep.
and that's what I wanted. Sorry, Colin.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That was the whole point of me designing that bait. So of course it does. I think it gives it a little bigger profile in the back,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's more water displacement. It gives a lot of action. You can add different colors to the tip. You can put in the orange. You can put in the blues, whatever
Yeah.
guys you want. But I also wanted to be able to pull off that paddle tail and use it like a straight tail swim bait. And I think that
Yeah.
that accomplishes it. With that design.
Yeah. And I think really that straight tail has really kind of was overlooked a lot. And Caleb, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Up until Hog Farmer done that spunk shad,
Mhm.
and once that spunk shad came out,
Yeah.
it was
At
people. It
least the
opened eyes.
modified, straight tails we used, like a fluke style bait for forever.
Yeah.
But there's something special about those soft rib baits, like a Kitech style bait. They were the first to do that really soft plastic, and that they had the swing impact and stuff like that. But there's something special about the swim there. But what was really special about it is that you could modify it so easily. Instead of having a traditional boot that's got a taper on it, like a bunch of,
Right.
think about a mag draft, you think about a lot of other, a Bastrix, hollow body swim baits and stuff. It's like you can't really modify that without really messing with the bait and the action. Whereas those Kitechs and a boot tail like yours, where it's just a straight run of plastic onto a boot like that, like you can trim those sides. You can
Right.
change the swim completely. You don't
Yeah.
have to take them all the way off. You can actually just
Mm.
trim a little bit, create a
Yeah.
coffin bill. There's so many things that you can do to get a very subtle swim out of those.
That's like that. Oh crap! I had it on top of mine. Uh, you done a video, and that would work great with that bait, Caleb. What is it called? It's got the jig, and then it's got the plastic. It's almost like a blade, but it's
Oh,
attached.
Are
is
you
that
talking about the cone head?
No.
Oh, the inline.
Shaky vibe thing?
Uh, it has where the video, Caleb, was where you took it to where and you shrunk it down.
Oh, like trimming the scrounger down.
The scrounger, that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
scrounger. Yeah,
That's
that would.
I should have never made that video. That's
Sorry.
super sneaky, but yeah, like actually shaving the bill down. That's kind of like an
Yeah.
old school. Nobody wants it to get out of their technique. I think Aaron Martins was the first one to actually, spill the beans on that with his
Yeah.
Picasso head and
Yeah.
talking about trimming it down. But that's something like if you talk to the OG scrounger throwers on Tennessee River, that's something people have been doing for years.
Yeah.
Just changing the bill, and then that's kind of what gave us the idea to start changing the boot tail on some of those style swim baits like that. Because
Yeah.
it's amazing what you can do. You can, especially on a rig. I don't know if you've tried this yet, but like putting all normal boots on the rig except for one and just trimming it a little different, and it'll
Yeah.
swim different than the other ones. Make that your target, and they'll hit it every time.
And that's kind of my plan too for people. If you want to use the thresher and you pull off the back of the tail,
Yep.
you pull the back of the tail off because, like I said, you have different
Yeah.
slits there, and then
Yeah.
you keep the tail in the middle.
Yeah.
So
It's
it'll
just
kick harder.
But,
than all the other.
we have Mark Gilbert Jr. says core tackle was
Yep.
the hover rig head.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike.
And let's see, we got Cameron Gadd says, "What's up, John?" And Carl Finn was asking if you have that patent because people can easily copy, and so I mean, that ain't a question you have to answer or anything like that. But,
That's the nature of the fishing world, you know.
It's too easy to work around them.
Yeah, you just change it by 10%.
Yeah. So we do have another question: is how did you come about putting that the tail onto that? Because he says it was almost looking at it at first or thinking about it was little overkill, but then seeing it kind of fits.
Yeah, well, right away for me it was just I wanted a hybrid where I could do a straight tail and a paddle tail.
Yeah.
But then also, I mean, fins are doubled up. You know, I mean,
Right.
like
Well,
a shad fin is usually got like two parts. So I mean, it wasn't, and I appreciate the honesty because I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that looks like they're trying way too hard, and I wasn't trying to do that, but I also didn't want to come out with another bait. I mean, Kitech has the best,
you have to be different.
Yeah,
and so
and I think being creative can be good. I do talk to people. There's a fine line with creativity that if you go way too far off the original design of something, let it be a worm, a minnow, or a craw. If you go way too far, it can look gimmicky. So there's a fine line, and I appreciate the honesty in that. But there is a reason for it, and that is to
Yeah.
be able to hybrid a straight tail and a paddle tail.
Yeah.
And then I'm a muskie fisherman too, so I
Yeah.
like use. I've caught several muskies throwing this, and like Caleb said, I'll put that in chartreuse. I'll dip that in chartreuse,
Yeah.
orange.
Kill it.
Before we
But
move off, Caleb was talking about the type of plastic, the softer plastic, and
yeah.
things like that.
Oh yeah.
So my design, I
About
am
to ask you to do that.
yes. So I
Oh yeah.
design my baits to make sure I don't lose the strength of plastic,
Exactly.
but I try to get what I want out of it by the design. So the transition. And so if you see here, the first part is smooth. And
Yeah.
part of that is I skip this bait. I skip this bait under docks, I skip it under hanging trees, and with that smooth side, but then having the rib. And another thing with ribbed, you'll find out, and when we get to talking about it, all my baits have some kind of ribbed in them. And I was a big fan of the KVD scent sticks when they came out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And there's so much out there about scents, but one thing I really thought about is like covering up bad scents.
yeah.
Right.
So like if I could buy a split second more of them holding on to that bait than it did its
Oh
job.
yeah. It's yeah, and that could be a difference in between you winning a tournament or if you're not in a tournament, being able to get that fish in
And I'll
the
tell you, that is one of the most important things, and I harp on that a lot on my boat. Like having scents on you that are not
Well,
natural, and it can just be you yourself, even with clean hands that you've washed in soap. Uh, there was a study that they did recently where in like a swimming pool, like an Olympic swimming pool, you can drop like a couple drops of amino acids and a bass can pick up on those and come to it. It's like a shark. It's the
right.
same kind of thing. So what you talked about running like a cover scent is extremely important. So that your oil-based scents, which are most of them on the market, they can cover that bait, in other words, make a cocoon of scent around any bad scent that you have on there, any negative cues. Whereas like a water-based scent like bait fuel, that's why that stuff works. It doesn't smell like anything. And I have no
Right.
idea, like I hate to even admit it because I always thought that was just so stupid. But I'm serious, like it was Greg actually Warsham that kicked my butt one day drop shotting on that stupid stuff, and finally I started slipping. He was catching like 5 to my 1. Ridiculous.
Well, he's a hidden assassin, anyways.
Yeah, I mean
So
you can't get anything over on Greg. He's too good.
no, but John, like we were talking yesterday, and like when I looked at that swim bait, uh, and I was able to look at it closely. And first thing I told you is that tail is like a shark's tail.
Yeah,
And um, but guys, if you look at, he's got videos and stuff on his Facebook page. Look at his videos and watch how true that the bait actually will run. And I think it. I mean, to me, I don't know exactly what it is. I might be just kind of just saying that, but I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, John. But I really think that little tip, the tail that you have on it, really kind of helps balance it because sometimes you may get on a swim bait to where it might just roll a little bit, but I mean when you had them baits going, they were running. I mean it was just running true as like what you want it to do. So can you elaborate on that?
yeah, so running true, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, if you look at it too, like the plastic I have, it's not like overwhelming, like the size of the boot tail, and
right,
so and if you notice, it's got a little angle leaning back,
right,
so it's not like the plastic's not so rigid that it's like coming into the water so much. It's still flowing. And then when you get that weight going with that back fin, it just gives a nice counter. And it
yeah,
just gives you a nice and just like anything you get in packages, you don't always get a perfectly straight bait.
mm-mm,
Um, I find out that even with my baits coming out just a tad, let's say you get it a package and one's a little crooked, it'll still once you pull it, it'll run true.
yeah,
Um, obviously it depends too on how you rig it. Like if you put it on and your hook's coming out to the side or something, you got to pay attention to that. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
and actually with this bait right here, you can burn it and it won't roll over.
Right. And
Big part of
that's,
that too is if you notice, I didn't make it real deep,
yeah.
and it's got a little plump to it from side to side. And also one thing I can't stand, this is a fisherman in me. I have the little slit here on the top and bottom, but
Yeah.
I mean it's not real deep
Yeah.
because
Oh gosh, yeah.
I don't want one hook set and it's ripping straight through.
Rips it
Exactly.
out. Yeah.
So it's not a one fish bait. That's a. I was gonna make the point. Like this is my first time seeing the bait, but
Yeah.
first thing I saw you before you were actually talking about like the how soft the bait was. I saw you hold it up for just a second. And that is something that every fisherman should do when you get a swim bait, especially if you're talking about colder water temperatures. When you
Yeah.
pick up a swim bait and that little U-tail bends all the way down, it's soft. It's going to swim in extremely cold temperatures. But then you combine that with that solid body on there, and then, hey, it's not going to be a one fish bait. Because that was I'm sure this being a
Mhm.
fisherman, like that's the biggest complaint we always had with a Kitech style bait. It's just
Yeah.
like they work great. If you want to go through $70 in a day, in swim baits,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like a lot of times you get one fish,
Yeah.
whereas that I can tell by just the way that that's designed that I can glue that to a head
Hmm.
and I'm going to throw that on my A rig for probably most of the day before I
Hmm.
have one rip through and have to put another one on there, which is so irksome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And
Yeah.
from the new, so hurry up, you got fish schooling out there and you're trying to run another swim bait on the stupid head.
Yeah.
of
So,
course, I wanted to transition the slits to the smaller one too, and that helps with your alignment. When
Yeah.
you're rigging it, just little things like that. But I also wanted, some people, I wanted to make sure there was plenty of plastic that you could come down a half inch,
Yeah.
yeah.
and you could take off the paddle tail, and all of a sudden you have a really small swim bait. I mean, you
Yeah.
go from 4.2 inches is literally from the head to this tip.
So it's a
But
3.8.
8 3 point. Yeah.
And if you look, I try to do things for fishermen. If you look at the design, you'll see that there's like gill plates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's about a half inch down.
Yeah.
And you can cut that right there. You got a half inch off of it there.
Right
You got
on.
about a half inch off of that. So you're taking it down almost an inch
Almost an inch. Right.
to get you like a three and a quarter inch
Yeah,
swim.
3.3 at that point. Like for guys that are used to the Kitech
Mm-hmm.
deal or whatever, so you can take that one bait and go from a 4.2 size to a 3.8 and then down to a 3.3 if you
Yeah.
want to. And so that means that you have a 3-inch, right?
Nope.
No, that's the smallest. He's got a 6.
Oh, he's got a 6. Okay, I was
Yeah.
wondering. I thought I saw a big one.
Yeah, this is a 6.5
You could run that thing down to like a 3.3, a 3-inch, something like
for
that.
the four for the
Yeah.
4.2. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Now, let's see. Ethan Jet says, "What's up, y'all?" And what's up, Ethan? He says they are very durable. Let's see. Sean Spears says Torrent baits are on fire. So, but
He's
hey,
out of Florida. That's
out of
how.
Florida.
Yep. They're
Yeah,
I
Ethan's from your neck of the woods, though, isn't he?
Ethan's one of my guys actually, and he's a kayak fisherman, and he just qualified to fish in the national championship where they weigh in or they walk up on the Bassmaster Classic stage. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. Oh, yeah. We'll
I'm
see him
curious,
there.
does he throw, if you're still watching, bud, do you throw that thing like a big easy, like on top of the grass?
So we'll wait till
Curious.
Ethan responds to it because he just now posted that. So
Yeah.
he should still be. But guys, we want to. We do want to do. I meant to say something earlier. Ryan Nelson says best baits around. That might be biased.
Brother, right there. Thanks, brother.
Ethan says that he has thrown it like that. Caleb.
Caleb, I run a 7/0 screw lock head or a hook. I made it for a 7/0, and I throw it weightless over. I throw it over lily pads, and it'll kick. It'll kick like a ribbit.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I was curious because I've used baits similar to that, and I've noticed in lakes where that's all they see is a big easy. Like if you can find a bait that can do something similar but sounds different or looks a little different, that can be all the difference in the world.
And
Ethan says that he also uses the Striker 6.0 on top of grass too.
yep, and I'll get into the Striker 6.0 here in a little
Yeah.
bit.
Um, So, but guys, I totally forgot. John had said that he would do a giveaway for us, and how you get entered into that giveaway is to ask questions, and at the end of this, he's going to pick what question he thinks is the best, and then he's got a little package deal that he is going to we're going to be able to get out to you guys. So ask questions. So uh, we did. Shoot, where was it? I don't know. I'll look at it some more here in a second. But with I know you just don't have the swim baits as well. What uh, other baits and stuff, John, that you make?
Okay.
I'm already eyeballing them right now.
Probably my number one seller, and a big part of this is because I sponsor high school fishing teams.
Can
Right.
I guess?
Local here, yeah. I like Caleb guess here. What do you think?
I'm gonna guess the Striker 4.0.
Nailed it.
Okay.
So here's the deal. Locally I sponsor the Mount Juliet fishing team, which is a big group of guys and girls and boys, and then same with Sumner County. But yeah, it's the Striker 4.0.
Yeah.
Um,
That
as
thing
it
looks
would say-
dirty.
Now that
That looks dirty. I love it.
that that is crazy.
and
And
I designed it for a couple things in mind. Actually, this is one of the jigs I sell. This is a wide gap.
Yeah,
I call
I
it
was thinking of
tungsten
that
Ned
too.
head, and it's
yeah,
tungsten. There's a lot out there that's lead. One thing I love about the Mount Juliet fishing team, I'm real close with a lot of them, and I'm affiliated with Anderson Marine up here, and they're a
yeah,
big supporter of the high school trail and stuff. And there was when I used to sell boats for Anderson Marine, I sold a boat to a guy named Ron Holt, and he's been big into the as a captain for a lot of high school kids. And this is like his number one deal. And actually,
is that
his number one deal is in our color, the mean green.
yeah?
It's like a sharp watermelon seed a little bit.
Is he
But
related to Jimmy Holt?
that would be a question for Ron. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. Well, I don't know how long you've been in Nashville area, but when I lived there, 2009. But when I lived there, uh, we had of course, you had the Jimmy Houston Outdoors. You had Bill Dance coming on, and Shaw Grisby. My dogs are barking, and somebody
Mine
probably
was just a second ago.
probably a cat. But then you also had Jimmy Holt, which he was around there, and
Okay.
he was one of the big time fishermen that was.
Yeah, I don't think so. I would have probably heard about
He
that.
probably would have. Yeah, but
So what's really good about this bait is like if a kid's new to fishing, and they go to new lakes they've never been to, they can put this on the kids.
and catch fish.
You
and
can't do anything wrong with that.
and they can they don't get hung up as much because with the ribs you can text pose it, so you can pull it
Right.
up, put that little hook in the ribs. And with the tungsten, they're learning on tungsten, so they're learning on feel right out of the get go.
Yeah,
Exactly.
This is a combination that's dynamite in so many places.
yeah,
And that's going to be dynamite, so those little straight tails like that, on a Ned head, the EWG, you hit the nail on the head with that. Like those little EWG, and I use an EWG with a little football head a lot too, just because it comes through a lot of stuff. But that bait, I can already tell you, that's probably going to be on the deck of my boat this spring. I threw a whole lot of baits similar to that, but what I like and what I'm seeing right off the bat, being a guy that guides, fishes every day, and pays for a lot of fishing tackle, that first half of that body is solid.
Yep, you got it.
She's going to last.
Yes.
And then the rest of it is just pure nasty. Look at that thing.
Yeah.
So, and you see on
because
my
you could
worm,
see, because you could see just past where the bottom of that EWG hook comes into the bait. You could tell that it's thick, and then maybe like a quarter of an inch past that, it just goes into fan mode.
Yep. If
It's
you
gonna
notice, my worms, they'll have the capital T. I can't get the logo on the worms with a capital T. So if anyone knocks me off because of the patents and everything, I'll say, "Hey, what's that T for?"
Exactly.
For trader, for stealing stuff. But actually, what's really cool is the length of it. I really designed to be able to hold a 3/0 hook.
Yeah.
I thought that would be so. I have guys, they might kick me for this, and I won't say anybody's name, but they flip that. They flip it.
Yeah.
And another thing is, my dad got me into fishing, and his favorite thing to do is Texas rig with a 3/0 hook. And I had to make sure when I was first messing with it, I made it too small. I wanted to make sure you could fit a 3/0 hook. That was just a key thing. Now this one isn't. This one's a little smaller, but I designed it to make sure that fits in it really good. It's a light wire hook, so you can really pin them good without
spinning rod, light line. I tell you, so one of the key techniques for me this past spring were, I had a lot of people in my boat, a lot of people that didn't necessarily have a whole lot of fishing experience. One was dead sticking a small EWG, and I call those those little EWGs, I always call them like a small shaky head or whatever, even though some of them have a Ned head, some of them have a football head, some of them have a ball head.
Yeah.
It's kind of, to me, they're all kind of a shaky head where, it's the way that they sit compared to a regular Ned hook and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other way, I'll give away one here, is throwing an ultra lightweight Texas rig, an 1/8 ounce head, not pegged, with a small EWG hook. I really like the what's that, Gamakatsu G-Lock.
G-Lock.
Yes.
The G-Lock's dynamite for that. Super light line, but you throw this thing out there and you don't fish it like a Texas rig. Toss it out there and just start slow reeling it. That worm is going to be perfect for that. And it blows people's minds. Like, you can go right behind somebody fishing a Texas rig the right way, and you can throw that little worm in there and just start slow reeling it through there. And we had like 60, 70 fish days with people that had never hardly picked up a rod before doing that in the spring.
Another thing,
I love this crawl too, dude.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
So I love that crawl.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Let's see. Wade says that that 4.0 will see work in my lineup on Logan Martin here in a couple weeks for stop one.
NPFL.
Yep, of his NPFL. But also, John, speaking of Wade, let's and kind of go back to your swim bait.
Yep.
Can you happen to have? Yeah, there it is. Show us with the Thunder Rocket, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. And actually, we usually do a collaboration during the winter series and early spring. So if you go to my website right now, you can actually get what I'm about to show you. You get the rig, and I'll show you the head, and I'll talk about it in a second. You get the rig and a pack of my threshers for like $13.99. So, and I'll ship it straight to your house. So he's got what's called a Thunder rig, and if you look at it, his patent. So speaking of patents, is a Thunder Rocket. So it's like a blade, like a spinnerbait blade, but it's got rattles in it.
Huh.
So what he has here is we have a rig. And it comes where you can put it down in the center. But I like to throw it like this sometimes too, like a spinnerbait. And then you got 3 leads. You have 3 leads here. And then this is my color called Blue Lightning.
That's perfect for right now.
So it's like thunder and lightning.
Yeah.
Well,
dropping the hammer.
Like thunder.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. But It looks like you kind of caught and piqued the interest of Caleb right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
I'm always looking at different things and seeing a blade on there on the rig. I saw one. Gosh, I can't remember. It's a local company. It might be a company around Dale Hollow where they were putting a couple buzzbait blades
Mm.
on their top two wires
Hmm.
and then running three leads down there, and it was like a spring thing, like throwing a buzzbait, and it would actually
oh
rise that rig. I was like,
I bet that
This will do the same.
I
You can run this on the top.
yeah,
Not only will it cause that, that wake, it's
yeah
rattling. So you're calling them up.
interesting.
yeah
And then of course it's calling them up like this, and then they got three to choose from, and that's where
Exactly.
yeah
you could
And
put target bait on, or
I
however you
tell
want.
you, that is so key when these fish, because a lot of the schooling fish just get absolutely hammered, right? They're easy to find. Like anybody can find them when they're blasting up on top in the fall and stuff, late summer.
yeah
And so having something like that, those fish, like if you throw a topwater out there or if you throw a single swim bait, a lot of times these fish are the bait that time of year is really small, right? And
yeah
so those fish, most of the big ones in those groups, they're not coming up to eat a single bait. They're coming up to eat a small little group of 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 shad that's separated from the main group where all those hybrids and stuff are
yeah
schooling on them. So I feel like something like that could be absolutely perfect in
Yeah,
that
yeah
and
situation.
he's got them where the platinum. Then there's one that's clear, which is you can
Yeah.
this is where you can see the blades, and this is another bait of his. It's called the Thunder Bait,
that is
I know.
that's
and
what I've been using is the thunderbait
there's
uh
a gold one as well.
yeah and so
Interesting.
but and it's the the noise that it puts off. I mean, it is definitely
It's
a
different
game
too.
changer.
It's
Yeah,
got to sound different, doesn't it?
it does,
And
and
That's all that matters.
yeah,
and it opens up something too. Obviously with the live scope you can see the fish, but if you get like dirty water,
Yeah.
so at Percy Priest, Brian and I fished last winter, and it got dirty. It rained hard, and it was cold, dirty water. And I used this with the gold with my blue lightning, and I targeted those fish and could catch them. They could find it so
yeah,
good, and that
That's
rattle.
that's wild because usually like we put down rigs when the water gets dirty.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I can't catch them on a rig when like I'm picking up a spinner bait. Like the rig
yeah.
goes away and I pick up a spinner bait.
Yeah,
and
Will Norton says that Striker 4.0 is money maker. My favorite color is that mean green with the
Yeah,
little chartreuse on the tail.
little chartreuse
Uh,
on there.
Yeah, and John Schaefer says the Threshers are the best for A rigs, hybrids, and stripers. I guarantee you, throw in that Thunder rig and have it. And I hadn't really thought about it, but until you was telling me the other day, John, that how you put that up as like a spinner bait,
Mhm.
and it got me thinking like when we had Jimmy Houston on uh, last week, and I mean, he is the man of the spinner baits.
Mhm.
But could you imagine? I mean, because that is going to elevate that A rig just with the little rattle and stuff that it's not a blade. It's almost about the size of like a crankbait type deal.
Mhm.
But it will elevate it, so it'll help you keep it up in the water column.
Mhm.
And he was talking about like now as the water kind of definitely gets colder, like people think that the bass are going to be up underneath the school, and he says, but with the technology now with the live scope, we have realized that they are above.
Every time
So
the fish
I
you want to catch, I'll tell you every time is
yeah
above them.
yeah. So that right there, and I didn't mean to tell one of your secrets, Caleb, but
I think a lot of guys are starting to pick up on that. I think
yeah
that's a big thing is what I've noticed. The water got really really cold yesterday. It's finally it's made a huge drop, right? Like we were main lake 48, in the creeks mid 40s, and then yesterday it was like in the creeks, like low to mid 30s, or not low to mid, but high to mid 30s, and
Yeah.
then like low 40s for main lake temperatures. And
Yeah.
those fish, like we were sitting there looking at them, and you would think, like just based off of knowledge that we've read off Bassmaster magazine for years, you would think that they would be off those breaks, kind of on that mud bottom and stuff. And every fish, big fish that I saw, and every fish that we wanted to catch was in 6 foot of water. It didn't
Yeah.
matter if they were in 6 foot of water, like up on something, or if they were in 6 foot of water suspended up over 30 foot. It
Right.
didn't matter. They all wanted to be up.
Yeah.
And I've seen that over and over.
We got Mark asked if that striker, how big does that striker come?
The Striker 4.0.
Yeah,
It comes a bigger size, right? It comes in a 6.
Yeah, I got a Striker 4.0 and a 6.0, and I'll describe the 6.0. I actually designed it a bit different. It's got the main attributes, but I designed it for flipping.
Right.
So I'll answer his question. So I got here's my lazy gill color with like a blue flash pumpkin, but then side by side, then here's my Striker 6.0.
Is that a smoke?
It's hard to tell, but here, let me turn the light on here. I'll show you. See if I can get this here.
Which one are you talking about? The lazy gill?
Yeah, lazy gill's got
it kind of looked like it had like it was a smoke, just like
it's when the sun hits a bluegill on the side.
Okay.
It's I would call it. It's like what do they call it? The zoom color is it's like green pumpkin, blue pearl, or something like that.
Yeah, I call it lazy. I call it lazy gill because they catch. The bass are going to catch the bluegill slipping.
It's just one of the. I mean, it's just one of the all-time great flipping colors with a crawl, football jig trailer colors. You name it, like that. That gets them. I don't care where you are in the country. You tie on that color right there, and you're going to catch fish 12 months out of the year on that color. It looks like a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. And it was the way I came up with it is because I, years ago I would fish the Okeechobee craw, but then there was a magic craw, and it was like, I believe this is right. I like the blue on the magic craw, and I like the green on the Okeechobee craw.
Yeah,
I was like, let's do this, So I didn't want the watermelon with the blue flash. I wanted more of a green pumpkin with the blue flash.
Yeah, and that's what Ethan said. Is that lazy gill is his favorite. Okeechobee crawl is similar.
Yes, because Okeechobee has that sapphire blue.
Yeah,
this has more that like you said, that smoke blue type. And before we leave the Striker 4.0, I fish up north in northern Wisconsin, and I was on some big smallmouth, and I went out one day and was just struggling. And I said, forget it. And I put this Striker 4.0 on the Carolina rig, and it changed.
How would, I mean, because looking at it from a camera, like from just seeing it, like, could that also be used as like a wacky or
Ned rig,
like a wacky rig,
like a Nico,
Yeah, Nico rig would be dynamite, especially with that longer one. You probably get a little bit better action on that longer one.
Yeah,
have it prepped.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
this right here is a dynamite way to fish weed edges if you have weed edges.
Oh yeah.
Well, before TVA sprays, we do.
Well, in northern Wisconsin in the summer, I'll fish in like 15, 20 feet, and they'll have just walls of weed.
Yeah.
And you just you let this drop. Another thing I like to do,
holes.
Yeah.
Holes in that grass too would be dynamite with that.
And don't sleep on the bluff walls with this.
Mm-hmm.
So
hush your mouth. Quiet.
Well, I mean,
if we fish Nico rigs on bluff walls, it doesn't work.
Yeah, not
it
at all.
does not. Yeah, but I like going to some local place, and which Caleb knows where I'm talking about, and doing some drifting, and that would definitely work. Drifting.
That's a huge thing, I'll tell you. So, we fish a lot of tail races below dams on Tennessee River, And for all you high school kids out there that are tired of hanging a Ned rig, or hanging up a shaky head, or hanging up a drop shot, a Nico rig is the ultimate drift bait, or in heavy current. And there's a lot of things that you can do with that. You can take one of these screw locks, the screw locks that we use on a big swim bait hook or on an Alabama rig, and you can take a little piece of wire and you can attach it to that screw lock there, and then you can run whatever size tungsten weight that you want on that. Yeah. So if they're running, if I'm below a dam and they're running 70,000, I can still glue that Nico rig to the bottom and never get it hung.
Yeah. Chris Crutchfield says that 4.0 is a good crappie bait if you shorten it down.
You got it.
That's some stud crappie right there. That's what I'm talking about.
That's how I catch them on Old Hickory. I take thanks, Chris. Here, I'll pull one out so you can see the mean green color. The mean green takes the chartreuse so good. That's why it's so good. So here's my mean green color.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, yeah.
I take about half of what I got here to this, and I do a crappie jig, and I catch a bunch of crappie with it.
Man. Yeah.
They just suck that whole thing in. It's no problem. I'm telling you guys, a 10-inch crappie, it's no problem. I swear.
No, I fish a lot bigger baits for crappie too. Yeah. It's like a 3-inch bait is nothing for a crappie. A 3-inch bait is nothing for catching big red ear bluegill. Like
I catch crappie on the A rig with my Thresher 4.2s.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of, before we move off the A rig, so there's one of the top guides in our area. His name's Brian Carper. And he just hit 20 years of service this area as a crappie guide, and we fish together. We're good friends. We do Bible study together, things like that. I gave him some of my new baits. So if you notice, I have a pearl, and I don't start with you'll see I don't have a lot of colors I offer, because I'm trying to tell people my emphasis is on the design. And as I grow, I'll add colors, but I start with the basic things where I think are good. Sometimes it's selfish. It's the things I want to fish, but that's what you get to do.
You've got all the right ones on here.
Well, it's like, what is it? The saying, when it's like penicillin, you don't need too terribly much. Just use what you got.
No. And I think people get way overcomplicated with plastic colors a lot. Like there's certain things like a green pumpkin watermelon style bait. A black is super important. And then, something in the red, like a plum. I see you got a dynamite looking plum right there. Striker 6.
And my plum it's opaque. So that's what
I'm looking at it. And it looks exactly like so when I get a plum, let's say it's a Zoom, I pull it out. And the first thing I do is scrunch the crap out of that thing to try to make it look exactly like the one that you've got.
And then if you see it,
yeah,
without getting into the camera too much, you don't want. I wanted it to stop the color.
Yeah.
I mean the light. So a lot of them are they're real translucent.
Yeah.
This one's opaque. And the big thing about plum, especially for us in Old Hickory in the summers, we fish them on the ledges.
Yep.
And the deeper you go, the more solid bait you want for the light penetration.
100%.
You see it. Yeah. But
I mean, you've got watermelon red, you've got green pumpkin, you've got black and blue flake. I mean, there's not a whole lot beyond that you can ask for. The only thing I'm not seeing on here is that 80s blue, that prison dad blue.
Yeah.
Like, I need a couple like that, but only send them to me. Don't let anybody else. I'll take very good care of them.
And with me and kind of the backdrop to my business is like I want to. The first thing is like people gotta take my designs and see if it's something that would bring them confidence in a fishing day. Okay. And then to deliver the designs, I couldn't deliver without basic colors. Yeah. So you're not going to flip something that's not green pumpkin or black and blue. You just you're trying something.
You're not going to give me a Herbert one and be like, try this out. I'm gonna be like, okay.
No. Yeah, I'm not.
But you could take those colors right there and go anywhere in the United States and go catch some fish.
And that's kind of what I was hoping for. Now you'll see some random colors on there. My Striker 4.0, I have I call it Good Morning. It's kind of like
Morning Dawn.
like a morning dawn, and then
Oh man.
which is just another standout. Just like
honestly,
Tequila
and
Sunrise Morning Dawn, you got to have it.
I created that because a bunch of the college students requested it. It
They
doesn't
probably throw it on a drop shot, don't they?
yeah, it doesn't sell as much, but I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's going to eventually sell. The Blue Lightning for the Thresher, that's a little different, but it's going to be great if you want to throw on the back of like a sexy shad spinnerbait, things like that.
That's a huge thing. That in the clean water and cold water, I throw a chartreuse swim bait most of the winter.
Big on Dale Hollow too.
It doesn't. Yeah, Dale Hollow. I don't care if it's a Highland Reservoir Lake, Lowland Reservoir Lake. That chartreuse and what it is. So the way the tubes work in a bass's eye, the colder it gets, their eyesight, they struggle with it more, especially the older the fish. The fish that I want to catch, the fish that you want to catch, the ones that we hang on the wall, they don't see as well when the water temps get really, really cold. And so your bright chartreuses, your bright whites, and your reds, those are going to be your best opportunities at really, really big fish. Now, you might not get as many bites. You know, if some kid's sitting in front of you throwing a 3-3 an electric shad, he's probably going to catch more fish than you. But if there's a 9 or 10 pounder down there, she's going to slurp up that Blue Lightning. I guarantee it.
Awesome. I appreciate it. So real quick, Colin. So what I was going to say was Brian went out today.
Yeah.
And he used my new bait. This isn't out yet. This color, the pure white. So I have a pearl, in which I called white when I first started, but it's more of a pearl. So I'm transitioning it. So I got a pearl that has a little more sheen to it, that has a little more translucent to it. And today he went out and he used my pure white.
Yeah.
And the pure white, we have a local expo coming up a week from Saturday.
2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks.
So it's what it is. It's called the Fisherman Swap, and they're raising money for. I believe I might be wrong, but I don't think it's raising money to provide food to raise hybrids for Percy Priest.
Ooh.
So I think a big part of this Fisherman Swap is to get the people to come in. It's I think it's a $5 donation or something. Where you can get in and it's just a fisherman swap, but I'll be there and I'm actually going to release the new color there. So if any locals and again, this is different than a pearl. This is a true white, which gives a lot of pop, especially if you're going to do like something like this, like a swim jig. And I do contrast. That's another thing I love to do.
Yeah.
Back of a spinnerbait, all your normal.
Yeah,
and you tried putting that true white under a UV.
A UV light, not yet. To see if it glows.
So, like a lot of plastisol, if you put it under UV or if you put it up on your dash in the sun for a while, it'll start to yellow, and I bet you that would turn into an awesome bone color too.
Yeah,
and that's one thing that we do a lot with our white stuff is we intentionally
throw them on the
top. Make it that off-white, that oyster bone color. That's a big deal. I bet you that would probably work perfect for that because I can see it's a very solid color all the way through, and it doesn't have that pearlescent on it.
Nope, and you're gonna get a more defined look too. So like I have a video up with them swimming, and I have the pearl on the outside and the true white in the middle. And you'll see more of a flare with the true white because it just holds it better.
It'd be cool to take. I bet if you took a video of that thing and you put it on an Alabama rig, and you stuck it down there with one of those water wolf cameras in like 30 foot of water, you would still see that Blue Lightning and that white, that true white. They would still kick down there. Which makes all the difference in the world when we're ledge fishing.
Yep, and there's Brian today. He was throwing it with. You see, he
that's a chunk.
Yeah, look at that belly.
And then look at.
Hey, yeah.
And then
that's a healthy little fish.
Look what's in its throat besides my new white.
Oh, is that a thready?
Thread.
Looks like a thready.
Yep, thread fin. So and that's the new pure white, and he went out today with it and slaughtered them.
And if you guys notice, I look at shad every day, right? Like that's part of my job. I wake up super early in the morning, I cast net shad, and I go and take clients and catch fish. Most of my trips in the wintertime are trophy trips with live bait. And what you'll notice about gizzard shad and threadfin shad when it gets really cold, they get a matte finish to them like that. It's that I don't know what it is, but like you could take, like I wish I could take one from the summer and put it right up against one from the winter, and it's like they don't have the same flash.
Right.
They're a very matte color, and so that's why those matte finishes like that, I believe, work much better in the colder months.
Now, and I was just thinking that solid, the white one, the solid white, and you take that paddle, and I know I mean, we already been an hour long, and we hadn't even got to the crawl, what I really
Right.
want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
But you make that into just like a straight tail, and when it comes spawning time
Yep.
and just
Yeah.
free weight that sucker, that is going to be a fish catching machine. And I know one thing, I gotta get some of that in my
It would be
box.
a good bed bait, wouldn't it?
You
Yeah.
could that, and you could put on a little like a wobble head and slow roll it on the bottom in the summer.
Yeah.
Let that thing dance on the bottom. Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's
So
cool about these kind of baits. They're like you said, and that's what I really appreciate is that they're very versatile.
yeah.
Like you've thought about it from a fisherman's perspective instead of just like an engineer type perspective, where it's like it looks good on paper kind of deal. It's like this, everything has a purpose here,
Yeah.
which I think
So
is super important.
I appreciate that, Caleb.
and but let's see the crawl that you
Okay.
and let's get into it. And so
Yeah, that crawl looks mean.
Okay. So this is called the timber craw.
yeah.
I named it timber craw because I like to flip wood a lot. So
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of the emphasis on timber craw. And
Yeah.
if you notice, when it comes out of the package, it's actually connected in 4 spots right here, and it's connected here at these little discs. And the reason I did that is I was a big rodent fisherman, Strike
Yeah.
King rodent. I flipped it all the time. And I'm not trying to knock anything. That's one of the baits where I'd set the hook and I'd split the middle. And
Yeah.
Right.
so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a bait that could be a hybrid. So you could keep this all connected, and it's more your cold water flipping bait or
Yeah.
more of your solid bait where it's still gonna flare out a little bit, just a little movement, but it's gonna stay as one unit, like the beaver style type
Yeah.
Yeah.
bait. It's gonna stay together. And one of my favorite ways to fish is with a wobble head, and so you can keep
Oh,
it
gosh.
together like that, and it's gonna have more of a big kind of
Yeah.
slow catching water, and it's gonna stay
Yeah.
as like one unit here.
Yeah.
And then if you notice too, the body is cylindrical.
Yep.
So it's not it's a cylindrical, and it can hold a big flipping hook. That's another thing. There's baits out there that are considered bait. They considered like this is the best flipping bait on the market, and it's a
Yeah.
great bait.
And you got to have a 2-aught straight shank hook to
Yeah.
flip this
And
thing.
and even if you get a 4-aught, you tear it one time, you lost the 4-aught
The
hook.
whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted where you had plenty of from here to here. You have
Yeah.
plenty of
I mean,
places.
that looks solid.
Yeah. And it's got the ribs like a lot of them. I don't have any rings because that's more for my worms.
Yeah.
No,
And then
you don't want that on a flip bait anyway.
it'll just
It's just gonna hang on stuff. That's the biggest thing. Like I've been looking at this for 20 minutes, and I've just been kind of drooling over it. But the biggest thing I saw was just like I can tell without you even telling me that you flip. Just looking at that thing because how cylindrical, how elongated it is. There's nothing crazy going out to the side that's going to hang on a little tree branch on the way
Right.
down or going to hang on the edge of a mat.
Right.
It's going to go right down and get where you need to go. But at the same time, it's like I feel like that longer grub section of it that you put on there is brilliant because, like you said, bigger hooks or using a standard size hook and being able to cut that bait down, like you could make that thing a jig trailer on a small jig.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could make that thing a really compact flipping bait too. Like you could take a lot off of that bad
Mhm.
boy.
And it also looks like when it comes down to like that springtime bite when you're wanting to throw a brush hog,
Yeah,
break that sucker
that's
down and
another thing. It's a I can tell the way that you did that. I mean, it could pass as a creature bait or a crawl.
yeah,
Mhm.
And I like the way that you were talking about using it as a beaver style bait too. So again, we have something that serves a lot of purposes without
yeah,
having to break down and tie up another setup or pull up in another plastic. It's like it's situational. If you can modify on the fly and keep fishing.
exactly.
So
And
when I'm
that
sorry, go Colin.
Well, and just like what going off of what Caleb's just saying though, and I mean because all of us guys that's on here, I mean we've got 1,100 people on right now. Everybody knows that. I mean that has bought fishing stuff that fishing is not cheap, and
No.
so if you can have a bait that you can do like what Caleb's saying is make it versatile to where on the swim bait I want it to have the paddle tail on it, or I just want the straight tail, or I need it to go down to a 3-3 when you have it as a 4-3 and stuff like that, to where you've made that very versatile to where people can adjust and alter that bait to be able to fit the purpose that they're needing. And that's you don't see that in a lot of baits. If you're wanting a crawl, you're gonna have to buy a pack. But then if you're wanting a brush hog or a creature bait, you're gonna have to buy another pack.
Yeah.
Now with what you've done is made it very versatile to where I need they might just buy 2 packs of whatever color they have, but they can use it in 4 different ways. That however
Oh,
to
even so many different ways. I
yeah
mean, look at the shape on the claws there, and think about rigging it vertically on a swim jig.
yeah
So you could have like a really nice bluegill presentation, cutting down the body to fit the swim jig to give you the right size gill, depending on your situation, right?
yeah
And then if you want to get really subtle with it, you could take probably the bottom pincher. If you have it rigged vertically, take the bottom pincher and just take it completely off.
Yep.
Then you
yeah
have a tail. So then you could really shrink it down. You have a decent sized body, a secondary color on your jig skirt on this smaller swim jig, and then you've got something that you can mimic a 3-inch bluegill.
yeah. And so I'm not getting a lot of questions, John. I'm getting a lot of comments and like about the baits and
Yeah.
stuff. So that's the reason why I hadn't read any
Okay.
questions is because they're all like this. That they're talking about how they've used them, that they like it, but I'm not getting a lot of questions just because everybody's talking about. Well, we bring up a new bait, they're like, "Oh, that's my favorite," and then they're like, "No, that's my favorite," and so
Yeah.
just to let you know that's the reason why I'm not asking questions
Okay.
from them is because they're giving comments and it's uh,
I have
all
a
been
question. Have you experimented with, you have 4 points of contact, right, on this claw to hold it into one shape to begin with? Have you experimented just taking the bottom off so that the claws themselves have less
Yep.
movement? I was
Yes.
going to say that seems like that's something you could do also.
You talking about with these?
Yeah, so leaving those, but then just taking the pinchers
Yeah.
themselves apart
Yeah,
down the
it's gonna be less movement. So basically what I say is you go from the least amount of movement, detach here, and these 4 is the most amount of movement.
bottom. Yep, exactly.
And
You got options.
I explained to people I didn't want a rage craw. I
No.
this is what I mean by it. And this rage craw is beautiful. I don't mess with
yeah
it. What I wanted when I flip wood is I want the initial drop to be fast.
Yep.
That's what I do. I want it to tank in there, and if there's one in there that's ready to eat, it's a
React.
reaction bite.
Yep.
yeah
Then what I wanted though, I didn't want to make these kicks so hard that when it drops, it's kicking like this. I wanted to drop like a tube.
Yep.
And then what I tell people is when you pull that thing, you're getting a speed craw kick. That's what you're getting.
Yeah.
You're not getting the overwhelming kick. Okay,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
let me tell you what I do with this. So if I separate these, if I flip it in, depending on how the weight is, you're going to just kind of have a dead stick. Now,
Yeah.
the more weight you get, the more chance you're going to get a kick out of it
Yep.
because of the pull. I wanted to design this bait where most of the kicking was because of me
Yep.
making the move.
Yeah.
So like if I'm doing a wobble head and I'm pulling it slow, I don't want a lot of kick. But if I start winding it, I'm getting that kick. I'm getting like a
Yeah.
craw. And craws anyways, crayfish, they don't really kick, when they
Yeah, they
swim.
don't.
Like,
Mhm.
it's like they come together, right? They come
Yeah.
together and
Yeah.
they're doing this thing, this number. It's just like more of an inline unit. So
Right.
obviously the kick is to water displacement and reaction and that type of thing. So when you buy the timber craw, don't think you're getting a rage kicker. Think of
No.
it as you're getting a hybrid of tube, creature, little kick, and craw.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So I'm glad you mentioned speed crawl. That particular type of appendage is good 12 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Whereas a rage crawl, not so much. A rage crawl is dynamite when it's dynamite. Something that kicks super hard is dynamite when it's dynamite, and then that's over. Whereas this is something that you could pull out of the box in the dead of winter, put it on a finesse football jig, and catch fish on it.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
And
Like, it gives you options.
if you go to the website right now, you'll see there's only 3 colors in timber craw. You got
Yeah.
your green pumpkin, your black and blue, and then you got your white. This is
Yeah.
by far my favorite way to throw a buzz bait. So what I do,
And
I
can you
pull
real quick? I've got it put it up, but can you tell us what the website is?
Yep, it's torrentoutdoors.com. And
So,
I hear people ask, they don't see the word torrent. Let me help you. Torrential rain.
Yeah.
And so like a torrent is like a rush of water. So anytime you see the names of my lures, like a thresher, if you look at it, it's like a thresher shark with the
Yeah.
tail.
Yeah.
It's even got like a shark fin on the back.
Yeah.
And like the threshing floor. Like so I try to put um some sophistication maybe
Yeah.
into
That's some meaning behind the name there.
and it's because I'm trying to, well, I enjoy it for one. So I try to put the sophistication in the design, but also in my thought process of when I create a bait or create a name. And there's actually a backstory to the name Torrent, but that is a very much Torrent Outdoors. It represents something in the outdoors, the rush of water, and that's fishing.
yeah.
Um, but I will say though, I this is how I throw my buzzbait probably 90% of the time. I just pop off the sides. This is a great. I have some videos. I didn't post it, but I was bed fishing up north for smallmouth, and I used the white timber craw. I was flipping the white timber craw,
Yeah.
and it
See, I think that would be even here bed fishing with that here would
yep,
be money because again, you're not wanting that to be when you're on the bed. You don't want it to be too much. You just kind of want it to be to where that bass knows that it's there, and you just kind of want it to be there and just kind of pester them. And but I mean that's that white right there, and uh, I would even dip that in chartreuse. I like using JJ's Magic, and
mhm, yep.
uh, I just to me, I mean, everybody's got their own opinions, but that JJ's just stays on there,
That
and
stuff is
it
strong.
stays on anything,
It's
and
a
I
little good swim jig trailer too.
yeah
Yeah.
And again, I'm a fisherman. I know you guys spend a lot of money. So, like, if you're flipping this on a Texas rig and you rip the top off, just use it as a jig trailer. I mean, there you
Exactly.
yeah
go. You got a chunk. You don't have to
Yeah.
yeah
go. So, buzz bait with the timber craw. Another thing is, obviously, is a great way to do it too, is with the thresher. And if you notice here, this was like one of the first prototypes of the Thunder Buzz.
Huh.
Um, so my buddy Wade, he has Thunder Rocket lures, so that's his deal. This
yeah
blade thing. He also has the Thunder bait, which is like a spinner bait with that blade. And then he did a small run in the fall, and I think he's working on it to maybe release it later in the year. But we'll probably do a collaboration where you can get a Thunderbuzz with the Thresher on the back.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that is, and to me, I mean, I haven't seen the buzz bait, but or thunder buzz, but I'm definitely going to. I could have used that probably here about 2.5 months ago.
well, you know, Ryan, I think it's Ryan Godsey, right? You said Ryan
Yeah,
Godsey is a friend of yours. He caught,
yeah,
I think, one of his first fish he caught on that because he had a prototype. He caught
yeah.
a 912 on chick with it.
Oh shoot!
So it's a great bait. And I still want to get to, if you don't mind, I want to talk
Yeah.
about the Striker 6.0. But before you do that, this is a bad boy. So you got this thunder bait like this, and I actually put my 6.5 on it.
Oh yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
I'll put
Upside.
the 6.5 on it, and you can, especially in Tennessee River, you throw that in the ledges with a 6.5.
Yeah.
It drop to the bottom. You slow roll that thing, and it just
Well, and another thing um, that people really don't realize with the spinner baits, and if you watch again with talking to Jimmy Houston and stuff like that, and with him being the spinner bait king, and you watch his videos, and he talks about it in the last week's episode of why he's so good with the spinner bait is he keeps that elevated on. All he wants is that blade to almost be like a buzz bait, but it's submerged a little bit farther down. But that's why he gets why he gets so many bites is because it's up in the water column, and with that the thunder bait there, what I've been it's kind of helped me to be able to keep it up elevated into the water column without really kind of having the rod tip up. It's more in a comfortable, ready to strike. Or ready to put the hook set on. So that's one reason. I mean, because I've caught quite a few fish off of it just doing that.
I fish it up north for muskie. I put the big swim bait on it, and I'll
Yeah,
dive. So with the Thresher 6.5, I have two colors. I have the olive shad, and then I have the pearl. Caleb, real quick, to
Yeah.
talk about this one more time. And someone asked about this tail. You can actually run this thing, this big one, and it'll it'll do a wake bait. You'll see that tail
Oh
taking.
really? Sharking.
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
That's
Kind of like a dying bluegill at the top when they're swimming
yeah,
on
yeah.
that the extra tail right there. You can run it just under the surface, and it'll leave a wake. You know, it'll swim
Dang.
across the top. So, um, but yeah. So going back to this, flipping the timber craw, I punch it too. You don't have to pop these off, but I pop them off. If you
yeah.
notice, my baits here with the Striker 6.0 and the timber craw, you notice that it's flattened at the top.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's because
Couple reasons. It sets a hook on or a head on it good. Some people like to use a screw lock, and what do they always do? Bite the top off
Yeah.
so you
Exactly.
can get the screw lock on.
yeah,
Well, you don't have to with this. It's got plenty of meat. So right
yeah,
off the bat, it's a 6 inch. Sorry, I can't keep it still. It's a 6 inch worm, but you can, being a fisherman, tear the top off and you'll get about a 5 inch worm. Obviously, the profile is going to be a little smaller from the stinger. So
yeah,
basically, you go from the meat for rigging, you got the rib, so about half the bait is all solid ribbed. Then you got the deep rings, transitions to the stinger. To I have a little teardrop on the end of both of them, the 6.0 and the
yeah,
4.0,
Yeah.
and that just gives a little weight
yeah.
to kick it more. None of my baits have salt. This is all solid plastic and it's buoyant. I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
that's what I was about to say. How does it float?
it'll float
On a
up.
shaky head, be dynamite. I'll tell
Yeah,
you. You just mentioned a screw lock, and if anybody is still using a screw lock shaky head, don't do that. I mean, you lose so many fish because if
Mhm.
you look at one, if you put a screw lock shaky head, and that's why as soon as I saw yours, I liked it right away because it's an EWG. that nice thing with that EWG on there is it gets the hook shank and the bite of the hook away from the shaft of the hook where you're setting the hook, whereas the screw lock gets in front of that, right? And so you have a blockage there to getting a good bite on your hook set on a shaky head. So an EWG style, or use a straight shank with a little a grip pin keeper. I think probably my favorite one is that Z-Man SMH head, as far as a straight shank, shaky head style hook.
Right.
But get away from those. I love screw locks on a swim bait hook, but or a straight shank swim bait hook. I mean that's great, but
And I Carolina rig with a screw lock like this.
And see, that's fine because it's not attached to a lead head.
Yep. And so same thing with this. Like another way I'll fish this is weightless.
Yeah.
And I can use a big old screw
and that's
lock.
just on a flipping hook too, right?
This right here is this one just I have on a flipping hook, and I'm gonna show you. I'll throw this weightless sometimes, and just like Ike and Ellie has talked about it before, if you rig those off just a little off centered, it helps with the snapping around.
Yeah.
When I made this stick worm, I didn't want to make another knockoff Yamamoto. And there's no comparing it on that fall. You can't make another bait that you can do weightless that just shimmies like that. You just can't. Now, obviously, they're full of salt too, which you're going to rip a lot of them. And that's partly because the salt helps the weight of it with the fall. Yeah. And you just can't really mimic that good of a bait. So when I made a stick worm, I wanted to make a stick worm with pizzazz.
Yeah.
And so
that does.
Great for shaky head, but one of the main things I do with this is flip it.
Really?
And the main
flip
thing
it on a Texas rig, like a lighter Texas rig and wood
like
and stuff?
Like this, and I pin a weight. If someone's flipping in front of me with a craw, I'll flip behind them with this worm. I've caught, so like if I'm in a team tournament and a guy's flipping the jig or hopefully a timber craw, I don't force people to use my baits though. I'll come up behind them with the worm, flip the worm, and I back clean up. And we've weighed in a lot of big fish with this worm. And what you'll notice too is like with the rings, this is old school. It keeps the oxygen in it, so you get bubbles, and it'll help it stay buoyant, and it'll release bubbles. And and that's why I have it flat here. I'll either use a screw lock for Carolina rig, or for it to sit well with a shaky head, or when I flip it, I'll peg that weight straight to the top.
Oh yeah.
And what you'll notice then too is that it's got plenty of bulk to hold. This is a pretty good stout flipping hook.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you got plenty of bite on there. Yeah. No problem at all.
If people want, and this is St. John's River type thing. I saw John Cruz do it. I think he was fishing years back, flipping a stick worm. Yeah. And this was a big part of it. And this, once this catches on, flipping in grass, flipping in wood, it's not your regular stick worm. It's when it lands, it does this kind of like defense thing, like a craw would do when you see a fish coming at a craw, sometimes they'll put their pinchers up to defend
it's almost like a slinky, so I could see that momentum because the back half of that is so much softer. It hits and then it droops down and then kind of eases its way back up.
Yep.
Well, and also like
barely move it and they'll just dance.
Yeah. But isn't there like a there's like a like an eel or something like that has like an antenna type deal that moves that antenna and allows like that it attracts the fish to come in. Mm-hmm. And so they're going after that, but then the eel or whatever it is, I can't remember right offhand, but they use that and then that's when they go. But they're
talking like an anglerfish.
Yeah. There's an anglerfish that live in deep water, and they do this.
Also, they got that little.
They do this little deal right here.
Yeah, that's what when you tilted it over. That's what it because you can see that little ball, and I was like, because it's just, and I can imagine if it's just dancing around, like even when you're holding it straight and that sucker, you can't keep it still, but when you have it in the water and having any kind of current, that's just going to make that just. That's going to
Yeah,
be
and
awesome.
this going back to this, why it's so good for people that just getting into fishing. And Caleb mentioned it. This is really, I call it a Y gap Ned head because it just attracts people to the
Yeah.
understanding that it's
Oh
more of
yeah.
a condensed bait, but it's basically a finesse shaky head. I mean, that's
Yeah.
basically what it is. I do have something coming out soon though, but that's beside the point. I got a
Yeah. I'm ready to see that whenever
yep.
you you can let us know about it.
So the updating things that are coming, a week from Saturday, I'm releasing the pure white.
Yeah.
Then we have the Wilson County Fishing Expo. It's called like Tennessee Boat and Fishing Expo. That's February 2nd through the 4th.
Yeah. 2 weeks.
I'm releasing a new timber craw color, and
Nice.
it's gonna be, and it is fantastic because I've already fished it. It is a fantastic bait. I cannot wait till people get to see that. And then we'll hopefully be releasing. So Anderson Marine has an in-house boat show coming up in the 1st of March. If it plays right, I should be releasing my new. It's a new design.
Okay.
It's gonna be it to kind of give you a hint. Ned Demiki. So
No.
Um, it's something I think I needed, and it again, me and my buddy, we fished a trail called Anchored by Grace Fishing League. Fantastic league. We fish Percy Priest, Old Hickory, Center Hill. We're gonna hit up Tim's Ford. I think we're doing a Dale Hollow, maybe not. Lake Barkley. We fished Kentucky Lake. We've done maybe we might even do Barron River this year, but we fish a lot of Ned rigs, and I used to just modify my 4.0, but I got something coming that's going to be it's good. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
and
like.
actually, if you heard of Presley Lanham,
Oh yeah.
he's a really good fisherman out of the Mount Juliet fishing team, and he's I don't know if this is known
It's
news
his
yet.
senior year.
He's signing with a college. I don't want to say it just in case it's a he wants.
Yeah. I don't think he's broke it out.
Okay. So good
Yeah.
thing I
So
caught
yeah.
myself. But if you
Yeah.
go to his Facebook page or if you go to my page, you'll see that he was catching some nice spotted bass. And one of the pictures has like a smiley face over the head. Is because I gave he wanted to test out some of those for me. And I
Yeah.
got a few
That's
other
awesome.
people that testing out. One of my guys, Isaac Peavy House, he's fishing the MPFL this year, and he's got some stuff that's in the works that he'll be using on MPFL, and
Yeah.
we went up to Dale Hollow and caught some nice ones with it, and
Heck
it's going to
yeah.
be a good little bait. And I have in mind too, Colin, you have some skirted jigs you'll be making or
Yeah.
are making.
I'm going to. I want to send. I'm going. If you text me your address,
Yep.
I want to send you some to where you can have some to try out. And
And
Caleb's got he's got the first like the one some of the original ones that I done. He hasn't got the ones that I got now that
Uh,
have a screw lock centering pin through them.
really?
And so yeah,
cool.
it is and it's got a 2-aught Mustad on it. And so I actually got Greg Worsham was on here. I actually got to tie some for him that's 1/8. And
And,
so
and you want to finesse, you could break this down. I put this on a finesse jig.
yeah,
Another thing from the Florida guys, they use these all the time on chatterbaits.
I was gonna
I could
say
see
that
that.
too.
I
I
could
was
see
thinking like
that.
you could use that on a scrounger or a chatterbait, no problem.
Yep.
Also,
Yep.
it's just gonna have a ton of action on there. Like if you can put it on anything that'll naturally impart some action or some thump, it's gonna go crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but we've had you on here, John, for an hour and a half, and I imagine we could probably go for another hour and a half
Yeah.
easily. But I know you might not have been able to get any kind of dinner because you're an hour behind us. But but again, guys, if you don't know and you see Caleb sitting over there and don't see Norman, it's because Norman has the flu, and
Terrible
I
idea.
yeah, yeah. He didn't ask if we thought it was a great idea for him to catch it, but but I ended up calling Caleb, and he hopped on. But Caleb, since we're talking about you, I do not want to miss an opportunity to be able to give you a shout out, especially with the oh shoot, why ain't they pulling up with your guide service
Oh yeah.
and it ain't it's taking. You can talk about it. I'm going to try to get your overlay to come up.
Yeah, so I started guiding full time. I guess it was, when was that? It was November of last year. And I've had a YouTube channel for years and years, and that's how Colin and I kind of linked up there. A lot of the local guys doing map studies and breakdowns on Chickamauga Lake and some of the surrounding lakes around here. And just, I'm a nerd, so I love talking fishing theory and all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of branched out. I started doing this. Heath Jordan kind of turned me onto this whole live bait thing. And so I started expanding on that, and it's turned into just that's, I have people all the time on the YouTube channel like, dude, you need to guide, you need to do that, And so after I fell off a roof last year, and after I was really hurt, I came back, and once I was able to do it, I got my captain's license, and it's been awesome. It's been crazy. Like in 2023, we had 31 double digit fish hit the deck of my boat. And had another like almost 40 between 9 and 10.
I'm on my way.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, in 2024, we've already got 5 double digits. It's
I'll bring the
amazing
lure.
how many big fish are in the lake,
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing, like Caleb, and you have definitely shown here because people were saying Chickamauga, there's no more big fish in Chickamauga,
Yeah.
and which you've heard it, Caleb.
Oh yeah.
That I
They're
mean,
just
because
smart.
it went John, it went from Chickamauga like once or twice a week. You were seeing people catching double digit fish to now what it may have been like once a month, at once a month and a half or something. But it's just been Chickamauga the past 5 to 8 years have been hammered, and it's not getting a rest.
Yeah.
And so, but Caleb has shown. I mean, this winter, Caleb, you could not have asked for a better winter for your guide service with
No.
what you've been able to do. I mean, every
No,
time
it's
I
been
turn
wild
around,
too. It's just like a lot of, that's one thing being out in the water too. I've spent thousands of hours researching bass fishing, not just being on the water. And the things that I've learned being out on the water every day is wild. How these fish are adapting to fishing pressure, where they're setting up, when their feeding windows are. That's another thing. It's like I am convinced that they're specifically feeding during down times when you normally, most people would be getting off the water because the current dropped out, or the wind went away completely. That's when I'm catching these really big fish. And so, and they're not sitting where you would think they would sit.
yeah.
They're off of those areas, and they're over deep water. They're suspended, or they're doing things that are outside the box. I mean, I caught a lot of fish this past summer, quote unquote, ledge fishing by idling 50 yards off the ledge into the mud in 35 foot of water, and that's where the fish decided to sit.
Yeah,
because there were so many people pounding them up on the ledge.
Well, see, like I have noticed, and which I imagine y'all have noticed and stuff like that, but playing around with the forward facing sonar, I was out by a duck blind on Chickamauga, which if anybody that knows, and I know Caleb, you know where I'm talking about, I was just north of it.
Yeah.
And there's a rock bluff if you're heading north, there's a rock bluff that's, I mean, just maybe 300 yards, 400 yards from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was fishing the point from the rock bluff and a little pocket that goes back at things like, but I was scanning out and fishing that ledge right there. I was scanning out, and I found it by accident because like I had dropped something on the deck, and so I went, and so when I went to reach it, my foot moved the trolling motor and sitting in like, I mean, it was in like 60 foot of water right there, but the fish were probably about 30 yards out away from me in the middle of the channel in about 12 foot of water.
Yep.
And I was like, how? And I
you
mean,
look out there and you're like, are those carp?
yeah.
And then you start seeing them swimming. With the live scope, we've realized now that really big fish, I'm talking especially largemouth, over 6, 7, 8 pounds, they don't stop moving.
Mm-mm.
When you catch them off of, you say you have a brush pile or a little key spot that you've caught, big fish over the years on. It's not because they're sitting there all the time. That is just an ambush point. It's on their rotation. These big
Right.
fish have a zone and a rotation. So if you happen to be there when they swim around to this area, this feeding window, this feeding spot, you're probably going to get bit. And I'll tell you another thing, she's not alone. We always thought these big fish that we caught were loners. Like you'd catch this one big fish on this key piece of structure or cover on structure, and they're not. There's almost always going to be, I don't care if it's a 12 pounder, there'll be 3 to 4 other 12 pounders with her. And
that's stuff
what's
that
crazy. You're going to pull them to the boat, so it's very unlikely that you're going to catch another one. You'll have to wait for them to reset. But that's literally, they school by size in these little wolf packs. I've told you about this, Colin, but last year we had a 5 fish limit in March. I think it was March 8th. That went 50.22 pounds, and we caught them all in 10 minutes. Off of one tree, I pulled up, and there was literally over a dozen fish over 10 pounds sitting on this one tree. And I've never seen it like that, but I've seen many, many times where it's at least 2 to 5 really big ones together. Yeah. And a lot of them are just like the places that you catch these fish, you'd be like, there's no way.
Yeah.
You scan out. It's like you're sitting on the juice. You're looking at it. The boat's off of it. And then you look another cast out into the middle of nowhere. And there's 3 big blobs there. And you're like, oh, buffalo, carp. And then you realize they're swimming. Like a big fish, a big bass. If you take and you throw a spinner bait out there and you slow roll it back to the boat. That's what speed those big fish are swimming at every time, all the time. So if you look out there and you see 3 big carp swimming the speed of a slow rolled spinnerbait, your butt better be throwing something at them. If they're swimming the speed of say you're winding a chatterbait or a swim bait, those are striper almost every time. They have a little bit faster cruising speed, and carp are very slow. Their average speed is just, they're very meandery. They kind of ease up and down in the water column. But when you see that one mark, looks like 3, marks. You got like a really big oval vertical crappie mark, like that monster crappie, but then she's got a tail behind her and she's kicking like a slow roll spinnerbait. You better be throwing something at that fish.
and that is knowledge. I mean, you've told me that, no telling how many times that, because when I have questions and stuff, especially about forward facing sonar, I mean, you and Benjamin Novak are probably my top 2 people
so much
that about a forward facing sonar that I have learned. But and actually here in a couple of weeks, we actually have Benjamin coming on. I think it's February 2nd. So we are we're going to get into details. I might have to send Caleb a link to that to where he can kind of sneak in on that phone call.
Surprise appearance and bother
That's
Ben
it.
for a while.
So, but hey, Caleb, can you tell, because I deeply appreciate you coming on, and can you tell people how they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, so the best way is I've got followings on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I prefer if people visit the website there and either email me. You could submit a form there. You can text me from there, and that's the easiest way to book a trip, because when I start posting pictures, a lot of times I start booking really fast, and I'll get a text from somebody like, hey, I want to book this date. And then by the time I get off the water and look at my phone, somebody's already got it. So your best bet is always, using the website and booking directly through the website.
Yeah. So while you called me right after you done this, Caleb.
Yeah.
But I cannot have you on this podcast and us not talk about the third biggest fish that's ever been caught on Chickamauga.
Yeah, that was absolutely crazy. It was on a guide trip, which if you go on a guide trip with me, I don't sit and fish in front of my clients at all. Like 99% of the time and 90% of the day, I'm 100% just, making sure everybody's doing what they need to do and making sure the boat's lined up. But at the end of the day, sometimes what I'll do if we have extra bait is I will free line like behind the boat, because a lot of these fish that we're catching were drifting in the current. So I'm in the front of the boat, but I'm actually at the very back of the boat. And it was kind of one of those things. My clients had broke off both of my free lining rods that I had rigged up. And so I had my jerkbait rod left over, sitting on the front deck, left over from a trip like a few weeks ago when I was still using small bait, and I had this little bitty 3/0 hook on it and straight 10-pound test. And I pick up like a 13-inch shad out of the tank. And it's almost like a joke. Somehow I'm able to like barely lob this thing out there, and I'm just freelining it. And what it's kind of, I don't know if anybody's ever live bait fish with really big bait. Like the bigger the bait is, they're like a bass, right? They have a lateral line as well. They can feel presences in the water. So a small shad, a bass has to get relatively close to it before they start freaking out. But the bigger the shad is, the further away they can detect a predatory fish. So like a 12 or 13-inch shad, like if a bass or a catfish or whatever, striper, gets within 10 foot of that shad, he's going to start freaking out. You're going to know you're about to get bit well before it happens. But it was hilarious. There was this, I was on a stretch. We caught a 10.5 the day before on. And at this point in the day, my clients, they've already got 4 fish over 8, one that was almost 9 and one 10.5. So it's like we had already killed the game. We're just looking for one more big bite in the last like 5 minutes. And I'm freelining this thing back. And all of a sudden, if you know anything about doing this kind of fishing, like when a big fish eats, you're going to know it. Like all the time. The shad's going to freak out, and it's going to be like the best jig bite you've ever had, and then just heavy and swimming off. And they always swim upriver. So your line's going to draw tight, and you're just going to kind of ease into that fish. I never felt the shad do anything. Like I was in contact with it, and then all of a sudden the shad was swimming towards the boat, down current. There was this new log that had drifted in. It was sitting in hardly any water. We had a little bit of high water, so it had pushed this log in. It's not even there anymore. And the only thing I can figure is this fish was sitting up there on that flat, sunning itself. And probably when my client's 2 shad drifted by, it eased out to the edge of that log. And as soon as that big shad went by, it must have just bumped her in the mouth. And she just ate that thing and swam underneath the boat. I went to reel up to cast again because I'm like, oh, my shad's kind of pulled out. I need to get him back up on the break, right? So I pull it up, and I'm like, dang, I hung it on that. I thought I hung it on that stick, and I eased into it, and I felt it head shake, and I set the hook the rest of the way. And that fish just started dogging out in the deep water. And I was looking at it on live scope for a second, and I thought, it's a big fish. I was like, it's a big one. And the guys that were with me, they kept saying, it's probably a catfish because it was just peeling line and staying down. I was like, I don't know, the head shakes. It feels like a bass. And so finally that thing, we never saw it until it came out from under the boat, and that kid put it in the net, and I was like, oh my gosh. I've caught a lot of fish over 10 pounds. And that one right there, I knew right away just the frame. I was like, I've never caught a fish that long before. And just like the size of her head and stuff. And ended up, I didn't have a ruler or anything. And I put her on the scale, and when I dropped her on the scale, it hit 15, and then it started dropping from there. I about crapped myself. And it settled on 14.5, and then I put it on the scale again. It went 14.6, and that took a picture of the scale, and took her out, got a couple little videos and pictures. I wish I had better pictures of that fish. Like, like, because when you look at the picture, I mean, it looks like it's a double digit, obviously, but you can't really tell how long that fish is. But I took that piece of braid, I clipped a piece of braid right there and pinched her tail and clipped it off. And then I took it around her body and tied a knot on there and went to the house and put it on the tape when I got to the house. And it was 28 and 3/16 inches long, which is definitely the longest fish that's ever been caught in Tennessee that I know of. And she ended up going 14.6. So I think that's probably like the third or fourth biggest fish ever caught in Tennessee.
Wow.
Yeah,
but
that's crazy.
Unreal. She was
That's
20. Awesome. She was, I can't remember if it's 21 and 5/8 around or 20 and 5/8 around, which she wasn't even filled out compared to a lot of those other fish. We took a DNA sample and gave it to TWRA, and I think what we're going to find is that fish was really, really old. I think she was just going down.
Yeah.
Maybe
the thing is, like,
fish might have weighed 16 pounds.
Could you imagine, Caleb, if it had the belly of the fish that Jon just showed us here earlier with that? If it had that, you would have easily had a 16-pounder.
That's what's crazy about like that fish. I can almost guarantee you that fish at some point in its life was the state record.
Yeah.
I think I just caught her on the downhill swing is what I think. It's just like she was it's just not headed, just old. The thing is ancient.
Would that be a tiger?
That would be, all these really big fish. I've actually given TWRA like 30 other samples throughout the course of the year, and they're all going to be hybrids. They're going to be some section of either first generation, third generation, fourth generation of a Florida strain and a northern strain back cross. And so what we're trying to do, and what I'm really excited about working with TWRA on, is proving that those are the only fish like this particular, whether it's an F1, what percentage it is, these are the ones that grow giant, right? So instead of just stocking the lake with Florida strains and then a small percentage of those finding a northern strain that's still in there, a true northern strain, and creating the right fish, we just start stocking straight F1s. We take the chemistry, the biology of the fish that grow really big, and we stock them in first generation so that they grow really fast, they grow really huge, and they're dumb. Because that's our biggest problem right now is fish learn, just like deer and all these other animals, they learn generationally, correct?
Yeah.
So, like, as we get more and more generations and a lake gets pounded on for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, those fish, there's so many negative cues that they're ready to, pick up on and not bite your bait. Everything went crazy here for a while because we had the A-rig that came out, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was the deal for a little while. You were able to catch all these suspended fish. Now it's turning into like the hover rig and a glide bait thing. But that's kind of going away also. It's to the point now where a lot of times I'll have a big, beautiful shad just out of the tank, and I'll have a group of 3 10-pounders follow it for 60 to 70 yards. 60 to 70 yards.
Just follow it.
Follow it before one of them decides to commit. That's how long they will inspect a shad with a small hook on light line.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's where we're at, and that's what we're trying to get away from.
Yeah.
We fished our fish off there in a few days. And if it wasn't for the thresher, we got lucky on a few things. And then I was kind of stroking the 6.0 through like deeper grass, like a heavy, like a 5/8 tungsten, and snapping it out of the grass to get a reaction. And we ended up pulling a 4th place out of our tails, but.
Yeah.
That's the thing with chick when the stars align and everything is right. Say you have a weather event, you got a low pressure system moving in. Like when it pops off, it's fun. Like this, like you'll catch. There's still 60 fish days to be had. There's still 30-pound limits to be had. There's some local hammers that pull that off pretty often and stuff. But I would say for the majority of like the fishing public, it can be a very tough lake.
Oh yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things I would love to see across the state. Like I'm not just talking about Chickamauga. Like what I would like my legacy to be is to be a part of making it to where any lake in Tennessee, some 12-year-old kid could get out with his grandpa and throw throw one of these worms for the first time and have a legitimate chance at catching a double-digit fish.
Yeah. Make Tennessee, like when you say Florida, you don't have to say what lake in Florida. You just say Florida. Well, you got a chance to catch a 10 or a double digit. So
Well,
that's
it's all about the science of bringing it back to where if we're going to stock fish, let's stock them to where they are first generation from a hatchery, so that they're not impossible to catch. Because that's the thing. If you stock this and say another fish, because that fish that I caught, I guarantee you she's pretty much sterile. Probably has been for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But say 4 years ago, 5 years ago, she bred with another northern strain. Her babies are going to be darn near impossible to catch because those fish like that don't set up in places that people fish.
Right.
They don't react to baits that you throw. They sit in areas where you can't even really get them on a reaction bite.
Right.
Because they have everything in their favor. It's open water. Like the only chance that you have at that fish, I'm convinced, like when I catch my 13-pounder on Chickamauga on artificial or on one of these lakes, it's probably going to be at night, or it's probably going to be during a high dirty water event. It's probably going to be during a thunderstorm. It's like you have to have different things that are throwing that fish off its game. Maybe it's she's in transition. She's been sitting in one kind of area, but she's transitioning into spawn. Which that's a whole nother thing because fish that big, they don't spawn every year. That's the only reason they get that big. They don't go through the stress of spawning every year. So it's a whole different science, and I'm super stoked I could talk about that for eons.
Well, you see, John, why like I wanted Caleb to come on here. I mean, because he geeks out about baits and he geeks out about just any kind of technology stuff. And he could probably go another 4 or 5 hours just talking about just fish setting up. And so, but guys, man, it's almost been 2 hours. And so
we're talking about letting you go 40 minutes ago. My bad. Sorry.
Right. I mean, but the thing is, like, we still got 1,200 viewers still hanging on for 2-hour podcast.
I got plans to make a 5-acre pond on my farm. So Caleb, I need some of those nice bass you're talking about.
Delicious bass.
Oh, I need some.
What you need though is you need the ones that we start running from the hatchery. So running them different first generation, like I said, that way they're super aggressive. I tell you, the same hatchery, if you look at Bama Bass, I don't know if you follow him on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
But where he got his tiger bass from, they are first generation tiger bass F1s.
That's what I mean.
They're all going to be catchable. If I came, it's not even legal in Tennessee anymore, but say you and I met up and I had one of my 100-gallon bait tanks and I had 5 10-pounders in there and you went and put them in the pond, that would probably actually be detrimental. It would be difficult to catch those fish. And if they were able to spawn with whatever you have in there, you're going to have like a bunch of freaking genius fish in the pond, which is not as fun. I love fishing on tough lakes and fishing for difficult fish to catch, but like for the sake of the sport and just the sake of everybody wanting to do this recreationally for fun, for tournaments and stuff, it's like if we're going to go through all the painstaking process of doing this, let's make sure we do it in a way that it's like super beneficial to everyone. At any level.
Yeah.
Is what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, excuse me. I mean, lakes like Old Hickory and Percy Priest and other lakes and stuff, like they don't see. I mean, we live in which Caleb, we're very lucky where the location that we live because we do have which Watch Bar has in the past couple of years has kind of blown up as one of those lakes that people really don't talk too terribly much about. but it's putting out good fish. Chickamauga is still putting out Chickamauga. It's gotten tough, but Chickamauga still can put out the big fish.
Exactly.
You've got the hidden gem of Nickajack, but then within an hour and 20 minutes, you've got Gunnersville just right down the road from us too. So I mean,
Yeah,
we
I mean,
live
right.
in
You could be at Goose Pond in what, an hour and 10 minutes from Chattanooga.
yeah,
An hour.
yeah,
The only problem with that, the terrible thing about that is 24.
yeah,
Because
24
you
or
never know
59.
how long it's going to take you to get home. That's
Yeah.
that's the issue. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to zip down there, you're going to have a great day of fishing, but you might be,
Yeah.
in traffic for 3 hours, just like the last couple miles getting into
Getting into Chattanooga. Yeah.
awful.
But John, real quick, can you tell everybody again where they can get your stuff? I got it on there.
Yep.
But
It's torrentoutdoors.com. So we're truly a family business. So when you order, it's usually just me or me and my daughters I got 11 and 9-year-old that'll help me do these things. And so when you support, Torrent Outdoors, you're actually you're supporting a small business. And again, they're all custom designed. So
yeah,
Torrent Outdoors and Torrent Outdoors on Facebook, Torrent Outdoors Fishing on Instagram. I think I just started one on X or Twitter. I'm
yeah,
not real familiar with that, but yeah, man, most of my traction is through Facebook and the website.
yeah.
And we have the rig combos going on right now for $13.99. You can get his Thunder Rocket and a pack of my swim baits, my threshers, and then we'll start adding stuff as we release new colors
Nice.
to the page.
Heck yeah.
And with
So
gas, I mean, shipping anywhere from $5 to $8. It's
yeah,
That's
ships.
one thing I noticed too. We didn't ever mention during this whole process. I've noticed a lot of it's very affordable.
yeah,
A lot of these baits, we're not talking like high tech prices
No,
or
yeah, you get
like
3 of these big
Yamamoto
swim
price
baits.
motos. Yeah,
Yeah, you get 3 of these big swim baits for $6.
in
And
a clamshell.
you can ask the guys that fish them. They're pretty durable. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for the most part, you're going to get a lot of use out of them. And a
yeah,
big part of that too is I initially set out just to be an online sales. That
right.
way, you don't have to mark it up too much to get the margins for retail and stores.
sure.
Um, but I do have local stores that sell it, and I encourage them, to mark it up a little bit more if they can. And people, I hope the fishing community understands that we're trying to just put out a good product, and the only way we can is if we make a little money. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the nature
That's
of it.
exactly right. I don't think, and to anybody out there, it's like you should be going into these mom and pop stores. We are super blessed. I know, Colin. Like, we have some of the most awesome tackle shops locally
yeah,
here. Whether it's Talking Tackle, whether it's Hog Farmer Bait Company with their awesome shop, whether it is Fishtails in Cleveland, whether it's Jack's, whether it's Real Deal Tackle in Dayton with Michael Neal and everybody. Like some of the most high end Japanese stuff. I mean, just like we get to touch things that you would never even dream of,
yeah.
like
That's
on a
true.
daily basis, and look at them and actually like lay hands on them and stuff. And I just encourage everybody, go support your local tackle shops, support your local businesses. Like, I don't go into Bass Pro Shop, I don't
Mm-mm.
go into Academy, I don't go into Sportsman's Warehouse. Because they're just big chains, Especially, I'm not looking to go into Bass Pro and pay 20% more for any other brand besides their brand. I'm not going to
Yeah,
support that.
yeah,
And so I think more people, you'll find better deals, you'll find way better products if you will go and support local businesses.
yeah.
Appreciate that. And as we grow, we release new colors, we release new designs. Actually, I'm looking at it. I have a notebook with about 6 or 7 drawings that I have future plans for.
Heck
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, we have John Sharp opened up Sharp Hook
Yeah,
Bait.
he actually made a comment here earlier.
Yeah, and his brand new store got hit by that tornado.
Oh yeah, I seen that.
The community, I put
Yeah.
some stuff out there at the community, showed up, and we helped clean up as much as we could with the lures. And then he's going to open up.
That's awesome.
He's going to open up, I think, a shop near Anderson Marine, and as he builds the other one, and then there's Finn's out by Percy Priest. So we're, like you said, Caleb, we got some new shops that are opening up, and we had a big one called Flippers that closed down. Poindexter's. It was
Yeah.
the other generation.
So sad. Like we're losing mom and pop shops.
And part of that
Yeah.
too is like we're now getting the new generation of people to step up and do it, and it's not easy, and it does not happen if the
Nah.
community isn't back it up. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Well, actually, the broadcast is about to end. It says it's got a 2-hour limit, and we got 3 seconds. So, guys,
Oh, see you later.
so, well, it said it did. It's still going. It's still saying live, but it popped up, said you got 10 or like 7 seconds. And
Dang, it was the final countdown.
I
guys,
get you some.
yeah. So we are definitely the longest podcast of Deck Talk podcast history. So,
sorry, and you're welcome.
yeah, but I mean, we still had. I mean, it looks like just a hair under 1,200 people still on.
Thank you, everybody.
And that's just record.
It's crazy. Yeah. But Caleb, again, brother, thank you for getting on here and taking time from family. And John, thank you again.
Thanks for having me. Give me some time to talk some fishing today. I was kind of going through the draws. It's been the first time I haven't been fishing in a while.
But I will tell you this, guys. I have not been on a boat with Caleb that I have not caught a double digit. I won't say what kind of fish that it was, but
exactly.
I have always caught a double digit on a boat with Caleb. So
we have been on a streak.
Yeah,
I think what's happening is we're not specific enough when you're on the boat. It's like
we don't care.
It's about time to catch a 10-pounder, and he'll bring up a dang drum or a catfish. I'm like, it'll be 10-pound bass next time, okay? 10-pound.
Yeah, we need to say. We need to say
the fish guy.
Yeah, but guys, we do have Caleb and I are in the process of planning to get together more or less to make a video out of him being out fishing and stuff like that. So we're gonna get that done. We're gonna have some drone footage, have maybe some underwater footage, and we're gonna do a lot of crazy stuff that it's gonna be an epic video. So y'all keep an eye out for that. It's going to be happening here sometime soon. So
I'll just be standing on the dock with a bag full of lures with my thumb up. Like, anybody want to?
Hey, you might want to show
a switch.
Yeah, show a little leg, and you might get a little more.
Yeah.
You'll take all the time.
So, but guys, thank you for staying on with us, and we deeply appreciate y'all watching. And thank you for all the comments. I mean, we didn't have a lot of questions. It was mainly just, and I imagine I probably missed because with 1,200 people in here, comments just kind of just fly by. But I imagine there was some questions that I did not get to. Brandon Heimer says, Caleb, you need to text me. But guys, but I'm sorry if I did not get to your questions, but a lot of it that I seen was mainly just a bunch of comments of saying that how they've used the baits and how they really like it, or how the baits looked and stuff like that. That they look like, I mean, they're going to catch some fish. And when and just a side note, when you see a bait and Caleb's geeking out on the bait, you want to get your hands on that bait. It's just a sidebar.
Absolutely. So I'm already, my wheels are definitely turning on that. There's gonna be some uses for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Caleb.
So guys, thank you again. Hope you live the passion. And next week we got Matt Airy coming on web. So we kind of hit January with a bang with having Roland Martin, Jimmy Houston, Jon Nelson with Torrent Outdoors, and then we got Matt Airy coming on. So, guys, we have started out 2024 with the bang, and it's still going to go. We've got all the way out till middle of April booked. So just stay tuned. Look at the website at www.decktalkpodcast.com. Look and see what our schedule is. We got our events and everything also planned on there. But other than that, guys, we're going to get off of here. Fat Boy is hungry, and I got to get something to eat. And we'll see
See
you
you
next
later,
week.
boys.
Hey, see you, everybody. Thank you.